Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Hey, Connected Life peeps. Now, if you've been tuning in, we've been talking about my book, The Tree of Life, right? And it's one of my biggest dreams to see this book spread all over the world. You know, because the reality is that the message wrapped into the allegory of this novel, it's one of hope, healing, transformation, all kinds of stuff like that. And you know, one thing is that I've discovered is that when we get divinely inspired to create something, you know, all the necessary pieces fall into place along the way. But the reality is we have to take some major steps of faith in order to see that happen. We can't just sit back and just expect it to happen. But the truth is that, you know, when we're willing to risk and trust, it's like we don't only just see our dreams come true, but we get to watch incredible stories unfold along the way that in all reality are just as miraculous as seeing the dream fulfilled itself. This week, I want to jump into talking with a very special guest named Noah. He's a really good friend of mine. And he's actually really part of this miraculous story that I've had in the unfolding of this journey of faith and trust, you know, that you're going to get to hear. And we're going to share how both of us have said yes to something that left an impact on our lives. But before we start, I just want to give you kind of a quick heads up. You know, there's a lot of you who have been touched by the Connected Life. And so one of the things I'm doing is I'm asking you to join me in this mission of basically collectively spreading the word about this book and getting out there and allowing it to get the feet that it needs to go out and touch the world. So basically there's just a couple vital steps on how you can partner with me. And I just wanted to lay it out very easily for you guys so that you could, you know, rewind after the episode and just lay it out. But one thing you can do right now is mark your calendars to head to Amazon to buy the Tree of Life audiobook between August 17th and the 21st. And all you have to do is search Justin Stumble and it'll bring up all the stuff for the Tree of Life on there. But August 17th through the 21st, because that's the key week. We're going to funnel everyone there together at one time and really try and get this book to get noticed on Amazon so that people who aren't, you know, connected to our world start seeing it pop up in their feeds. Another thing that you can do after purchasing the book is you can head to social media and encourage. Now, here's a fun little thing I'm doing. You encourage 5 of your friends, tag them in a post telling them, hey, go out and go get this book, The Tree of Life, on Amazon, the Tree of Life audiobook, and tag me at Justin Stumble. And what I'll do is at the end of the week, I'm going to pick like 3 people to do 50-minute sessions with me. And so that's the gift that I want to give away. That's like a fun little prize is whatever you want to talk about. You can talk about the sky. You can talk about politics if you want. I'd rather not, but you can talk about your life and the pain that's going on inside of it. But I'm giving away 3 free 50-minute sessions with me. And again, all you have to do is tag 5 friends to get entered into that and tag at Justin Stumble so I can find that. And a really big key is add the hashtags, hashtag the Tree of Life book, hashtag Okie, OAKIE, and hashtag Storytime. And as a special gift to everyone during the entire week, this is for everyone out there, you can head to www.treeoflifebook.com and you can sign up your name, your email address and your name, and we will send you a free copy of the ebook so that you can share it with your family and read it yourself, all kinds of good stuff like that. And just be sure that in your inboxes, you check your promotional folder after you do that, and you check your spam folder if you don't see it in your inbox within 20, 30 minutes of signing up, because you know how that is. Sometimes things get sent to spam. Lastly, for all of you people who always review stuff and that's just your thing that you do and you're going to plan on, reviewing this on Amazon as it is, I just want to thank you for that thing, because I know some of you guys are just proactive and that's how you do stuff. So thank you for those of you who already plan on doing that. That's super valuable and critical in the promotion of any product. So we're here today with, like I said, my friend Noah, and Noah has played such a vital role in the journey of my book. And Noah's background is he's a fine artist, and he's worked with a couple small companies, nothing really big. Some of you may have heard of a couple of them, but may not have. There's like Disney and Star Wars brand, Microsoft, Universal Pictures, couple small brands out there, right, Noah?
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Real quick, how long have you been working as a fine artist, and what does that look like? Like specifically, I know that you have styles of art that you do. Can you kind of enlighten us a little bit about that before we get going?
So started the business on a bike at 16, going door to door, selling art, and it was a pretty big hustle because there was no social media. It was all direct mail or a postcard or word of mouth, and just trying to get people to come over and buy art at my warehouse, kind of in my 20s. But at 16 in high school, kind of didn't know I was going to have a full ride to like Art Center in Pasadena or anything like that. So I had this entrepreneurial spirit of wanting to take people's vision out of their head and make it a reality. So back then it was all about relationship. And so would go into different stores and say, hey, I noticed your sign's kind of shoddy. Do you need, I'd love to redo it for you. 50% deposit, 50% when I was done. And that's just how it began. I would do brunch signs, and graphic design, and paint banners and paint hand lettered signs, and then awnings, and then started doing vehicle graphics, custom graphics, helmets. Like it just started to snowball into all these, like if it could be painted, I painted it. I found myself on, like at Nordstrom, doing big shoe promotions and clothing apparel promotions. I was painting live, and that was like kind of how things started really to get momentum, where in the public eye, taking the art to the people rather than waiting for people to come to like a gallery. So
I love that, by the way, because so many people, as a side note, are so passive in their journey of expressing their creativity, their capacity, their art that's inside of them, whether it's art or it's their abilities. A lot of people are like, oh, I just hope something happens. And you're like, no, I'm doing it. I'm going out and meeting people, and I have a need to make money, and I want to go out and I've just always been a firm believer, and still am to this day, still operate our businesses, like multiple businesses now, in this way of I'm a very show it and see it a presenter rather than trying to sell people on an idea. So any of the biggest breaks or biggest licensing deals that we've landed, or collaborations, or anything at any launch with a major company, has always been because I've created the concept in a reality and shown it to them as like, hey, what are your thoughts about this? So in the early days, that version took a root where in Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, down the street, there's this really popular hip coffee shop before, it was right before Starbucks was hitting big. And I would go on Friday and Saturday nights, and I asked permission from the owners to set up and paint celebrity portraits, to just show people, give them something to watch while they're hanging out, watching, having coffee. And it was a big party. There's probably a couple hundred people outside, and I would just set up this easel. They were playing music, and I would just paint live and create things out of nothing, thin air, for people to see and entertain them. Before you knew it, it was like, hey, can you come and paint this? Or, hey, I would love to get some art for my house. So it's all about taking it to them rather than, hey, come over to my warehouse and check out my art. Yeah.
So that's how it started.
And here's what, the only way that we can do that is if we're a little bit ballsy, which means we're not hiding behind our gate of fear, hiding behind our fears, going, oh, I don't know, people might think I'm stupid, or people might not like it. They might judge me or critique me. And I love that, because it was like, first and foremost, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not going to go hide myself inside of my studio and then slowly like let people in when I feel safe enough. I'm going out there and I'm doing this. period.
Right.
And I'm going to allow the journey of what I've worked so hard at, that excellence, to have a space to be seen. So many people want to hide even their excellence. Sometimes it isn't people that are scared of how bad they are. They're scared of how good they are. They're scared of actually the exposure of people finding out about them and seeing how wonderful they are. And they're scared of the pressure that comes with, and the attention that comes with.
Right. A lot of responsibility that comes with success. Most people don't want to step into success because they're terrified that they don't know how to handle it. And the unknown paralyzes them. But when there's a fine line between self-promotion mixed with confidence, mixed with cockiness.
Yeah.
And so the smartest way to do it is if your work speaks for itself, you shouldn't have to interrupt. And when you're creating an excellent product and treating people and potential clients and or people that are in your world as, listen, they're a partner. I always saw my collectors as partners because I can't do what I do without them, and they need what I have, and it helps them. It's symbiotic. It's really amazing, especially when creativity is the transaction that does that. So for me to always overcome fear and stepping out of like the overcoming aspect of putting myself or my work out there went from, man, I just need to be survival and pay the bills, to I just want to help and impact as many ministries and people that I can. 30 years later, it was all about, that's why I want to overcome. I can't give if I don't have. I don't get if I don't ask. I don't ask unless I have the wherewithal to go after it. And so a lot of people look at it as, oh man, that's self-promotion. I say, listen, here's the smartest thing you could tell any 18-year-old. Hey, you want to go into life? 20% of what you're going to be doing is mastering a craft. 80% of what your true art is the art of relationships with people. Yeah. That's your relational equity. And the art of marketing, selling.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to go into any business school, it'd be really teaching people, like, I don't care how great of a craft you have. I've seen the best artists, the poorest, do nothing because they don't know how to build relational equity and don't know how to maximize that. So that was what was it for me. I kind of had like that insight earlier thanks to great mentors in my life. But that was a big thing to overcome. First survival, then it went into impact. And that's why I wanted to go after it. Yeah,
it's so good. And I actually want to say something like, one of the things that, even in regards to us talking about our relationship, how it came into being, and the book and how that brought us together. One of the things early on with me in regards to creating my book was going, I felt like I needed to do it for myself first and foremost. And then secondarily, I didn't know how all the pieces were going to come together, but I did get, I was reminded of Field of Dreams, and when that echo of that voice says, if you build it, he will come.
Right.
And to me, the statement was, if you build it, they will come. And I heard that internally, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to come about. I just know that if I do it, everything will fall into place in the necessary timing. And I love how you were just like, I am just grinding at the thing that's inside of me. And like you said, it first started out with survival, but you're like, I'm just doing and pushing forward into this, and then trusting in the process. You weren't sitting down going, I need a 5-point plan on how I'm going to build this business and You're a young kid, and you just trust. You're connected to being a kid and needing something and going, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I think that so many people get caught up when it comes to the process of dreaming and creating in all these technical details that they're really hiding in. They're hiding behind excuses. I need an excuse. I can't start until I'm this good or I have this much in place. But again, that's part of hiding. And for me, it was like, I'm just going to do what I'm doing. I'm going to trust. I don't know what it's going to be unto. I don't know what it could look like, but I'm going to go with that journey. And it was really cool because along the way, you were one of those, if you build it, they will come people. Where there was a place where I got so far in writing my book, and I'm like, all right, well, I've written this whole book. I've edited this whole book, and I don't have anyone to do the cover artwork or any of the artwork in the inside of this book. And what am I going to do about that? And I remember I allowed myself to be at peace. And I think that this was one of the keys when we're on the journey of creating anything and creating a dream inside of us, is that there's ebbs and flows to seasons where I can push a boulder uphill, only so far before it's like, all right, I have to rest and let like life take some time and do what it needs to do. And there was points where I had to go, I have to rest. There's not grace for me to push this boulder anymore. And I'm just going to let the next moment happen. And I remember it was like I believe it was a Tuesday afternoon or something. And I went over to my friend David's house, and he's an entrepreneur, and we were just hanging out, and we might have been sipping some whiskey and having a cigar or something. That was kind of like me and David's thing to do. And I'm talking to him about my book, and I'm like, David, I just don't know what the next step is. I feel like it's time for someone to come in and do the cover of it, but I don't know who that is. And he looks at me, and all of a sudden he goes, I know exactly who you're supposed to have do the work. And I was like, really? He's like, it's this guy, Noah. And I don't really personally know him, but I built a bridge for him at one point to someone else he needed some connection with, or something along those lines. He builds some bridge, and he goes, I'm going to reach out to him for you, and I'm going to get a meeting set up. And I was like, okay. So I know nothing about this, Noah. And he gives me like some pictures online of some of your stuff. And I'm like, this is incredible. And it would have been very easy for me to say, I could never get this guy to do my stuff. Right. Because there's such excellence on everything that you've done. I could have gotten intimidated, and absolutely. But I didn't, because I was so free inside of my heart of just going, I'm on a journey. I don't know what this looks like. I didn't even put pressure or expectation that it had to be you. I was just like, all right, it's the next step. Let's have fun in the journey of seeing what evolves. Right. And I know that he reached out to you for a meeting, and I think a couple days later, we're sitting down on a Zoom call, and we're dialoguing about the book. And I don't know, what do you remember about that, Noah? Do you remember much about that?
I just remember the vision that was cast for it, and the details and length, because it's the book is a full meal. I mean, it's a great book. It's huge in scope, and I just remember the breadth of it was inspiring, but also at the same time, all the nuances of the characters, really could just see it really easily, and resonated with it. But then also what quickly shadowed that, not in a bad way, but more so kind of eclipsed it, was like our relationship in general, where I was at in my journey, where you were at in your journey, things that were happening there. It was very evident that God wanted to do something much greater, using the book as a vehicle to do it. And for me, it was just kind of like, all right, Lord, what do you want to do with this? We could have our own agendas, but first of all, this is the Lord's asset. The book is the Lord's asset. Justin happens to be the vehicle that's being the distributor of that asset. How can I come alongside and help make that asset become a reality? And so when we kind of met, it was like, wow, this is really, really special. Yeah. What do you want? What does God want to do with it? Where was it going to go? But then also at the same time, it just came at an extremely busy season in life. So, leveraging time and investing that time wisely. And there's a ton of assets that need to be created. And it was like, hey dude, you want to climb Mount Everest together? All right, let's roll. So it was, this was an undertaking investment, but a wonderful, beautiful investment. And those are the things that are my filters for what I sign myself up for and who I sign myself up with. Is making sure that the ripple effects of this time, this isn't time spent. This isn't time wasted. This is a kingdom asset that both of us can look back on, be very proud of, and saying, dude, this is going to pay dividends that will last into eternity. So that's pretty powerful. I
think that like you touched on there was a relational aspect that I remember getting off the phone call for me going, I met someone from my tribe. Like totally. It wasn't just, I kind of put it like this. It's purpose versus people. Oftentimes the idea of purpose is some external thing, like an accomplishment of a goal. And I think that purpose is supposed to become people. And when our purpose is people, everything else kind of unfolds, and all the other purposes, external ones, start unfolding and being really beautiful what happens. But along the way, even with this book, especially something about this book has always been about the lives that are interacting with me and I'm interacting with them. And it's been about this journey of the people along the way. And there was something unique right off the bat where I was like I said, this is one of my tribe. There's something here about this relationship. And this thing is like a vehicle for two lives to get to cross and to interact and to connect over love and all kinds of other things. And so I was so excited. I was most excited about the relational aspect, and not that it diminishes my value for what was going to happen with the book. I was like, this is incredible. But it was like, no, this is incredible. This is something long-term that I could feel was happening there.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people, when they're only concerned with some end goal in mind of some purpose being manifested in an external thing and not the people in the purpose, they miss out on the greatest gift along the way. That was,
totally. They run red lights without even realizing it.
Absolutely.
Missed opportunity, missed equity that could have been there, missed lessons, lots of learnings of what the Lord wants to do during the journey versus just the outcome.
Yeah. So ultimately you said yes because of the vision of the book, but also the relational aspect that you caught vision of between the two of us.
Yep.
I was just kind of curious because friendships are a two-way road and we each have exchanges. And I want to get into talking about the profound effects you've had on my life inside of this, but I kind of want to open the door and kind of find out, like, what is it that you found happening for you as you began engaging with me on your end?
Yeah. So the dynamic of trusted, safe, you helped in a lot of the time, a lot of those days of when I was going and searching for a lot of wounds specifically that were going to be addressed, because two of my mentors helped with specific areas of very way long ago family of origin issues. You specifically came into life at a pivotal point that really helped with addressing a few of the nightmares and wounds that were subconscious and brought to the light. And it was really, really helpful. The Lord's only done that with a few individuals in my life, but you're one of the biggest that has really played a key role of illuminating what those were, safely walking into them, disarming bombs, dismantling old agreements, vows, lies, and really what it takes to walk into them, deal with them, work through them with the Lord, come out and go through that process of forgiveness, compassion, and having somebody safely being able to do that with.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge, massive part of, like, layer after layer of the onion being peeled back and getting down to the core issues. Because what I learned, we're all there where we just don't realize it. What I call emotionally constipated.
Yeah.
And we're spiritually, emotionally constipated, walking around with symptoms that we're not, those symptoms blow a kind of like pressure releases in different ways, and they manifest in different ways with all of us. But I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I didn't know I was sick and tired of. I knew that there were things that needed to be dealt with. And you're just dealing with these aftershocks and pinnings of stuff that you're just not happy with. And you know that there's unfinished business, but you don't know how to get to the core of that. So what a wonderful friendship that God brought at that season of life to help navigate some of those waters via the vehicle of this book being something that we could work on together. And then we both just kind of volleyed back and forth where we each needed each other. And that's what's been really profound. There's friends and relationships you'll have in life that are for a season.
Yeah.
But then there's going to be friends and people that you have in life for life.
Yeah.
And that's a way different ball game.
Yeah.
So I consider you a lifer.
Thank you. You as well. And I want to talk about that because, part of what this book is about healing healing and restoring our childlike innocence and wonder. And that's part of some of the process that we went on with you on a heart level, was getting back into dealing with the child wounds and stuff like that, and going and visiting that place with love, care, and compassion, and and creating the safety that's necessary inside of it. But what was cool, like you said, there's this we had this back and forth that's evolving inside of this. And it starts out for me as like, oh, I feel like I'm building this friend, and the relationship with this new friend, and this friend feels really incredible. And this friend is wanting to take care of helping launch something. And what was unique about you entering in that way is you actually did the cover of the book, and you did all the art inside, and you did it all for free. And I currently have this incredible mural on my wall that you airbrushed, and that is actually the picture of the cover that was done. And what it began to do, it's interesting because as much as, I came to the table with an emotional strength, you came to the table with an emotional strength as well in who you are and how you could support me. It wasn't like this lopsided thing that you were just, giving me the gift of your art. There was so much more that was happening inside of it. And it was the gift of even your love and your capacity to dig in and say, I'm here with you and I love you. Because the reality is, as this journey unfolded, I found that a lot of unworthiness started coming up inside of me because I had never had anyone really go out of their way. And in fact, I'd never had anyone that didn't know me go out of their way up until that point to just give me some gift and go, I'm in. I'm buying into who you are. I'm buying into a relationship with you. I'm going to give of my talent, my time, my energy, and I'm going to invest this in you. And like, it started pushing this button for me where I'm like, I don't, he's giving me this and
waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. Where's the other shoe that's going to drop? Where is some sort of like betrayal or something going to happen where he wants to take something from me? But your love was fully just, I just want to give to you. And so I really love that I could participate in loving you as well and seeing healing in your life. But as it stretched out, there was this continual stretch that happened even over this issue. As for you, you're a very busy person, and you are a high capacity person with a high go. And a lot of that started pushing my childhood wounds for me with my own father, where I was like, Dad only has so much time for me, and he doesn't have time for this.
Totally.
And it started triggering the little kid inside of me of going like, I've already taken too much. I'm too much of a burden to him. And that's something that throughout our journey, I've had to expose with my PTSD and my trauma of my childhood and some of that, where I've just sat and opened my chest wide up and said, Noah, I'm scared here. I'm feeling unworthy here. I'm wanting to back off and pull away. I'm not wanting to be a burden to you. Like, it was that in itself. When we look at the art that you gave me, I can't even express what an enormous gift that was. But the gift that transcends that is the love, the compassion, and the understanding of participating with me inside of my personal story. And that has been tremendously scary and liberating for me along the journey.
Oh yeah, dude. Well, honored to be a part of it, and still honored to be a part of it.
And I think that the reason that I'm highlighting this is that there are these invitations along the way in relationships. Like, again, so many of you who are listening are going to have creative vehicles or vehicles inside of your life that seems like the purpose is this out here, but the purpose is actually the person, the people. But being able to absorb the fullness of the gift that is in front of you is going to demand that you take on the invitation of vulnerability. You're going to have to begin to face the places where you feel unworthy or you feel undeserving for the gift of love that someone's about to give you. You're going to have to begin to get transparent about that stuff. It took like the reason our relationship, even I believe, has gone deeper, at least I know as far as how I've participated on my end, is the places where I've stayed transparent, I've stayed vulnerable, I've said, here's my weaknesses, here's my fears, here's my insecurities that are going on, acknowledging them, apologizing when I feel like they've gotten in the way of something in the ways that I to be honest, I've pulled back in ways, it's an anxious avoidance attachment style where I think is what you might call it, where I've pulled back and been like, oh, I don't want to be too much, like, or I don't want to take from him, but, and this is me loving you. I don't want to take from your time, but me getting vulnerable like that is what's going to take a lot of you people out there listening. If you want to actually reap of the gifts that are sitting in front of you, there are hundreds, if not thousands of gifts in our lifetimes sitting in front of us. And we're going, I don't understand why I don't feel loved. And it's because we're not willing to risk in these vulnerable ways in relationship.
Yeah. Well, and it's a self-preservation mechanism hardwired into every human being of that which we don't understand, that which doesn't make sense. We retreat and we hold ourselves up in a guarded state for protection. Yeah. And dude, I get it. However, I just know that the people ask me, why can you go so hard and so quickly with some of the folks that you've never even met before? I'm like, well, number one, my time, I have no idea how much time I've got left on this earth.
Yeah.
So if my window's closing and I want to bear as much fruit as possible, and the person and or possible engagement with this person could reap incredible eternal benefits, I want to run through that as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking about what this person might take from me or how this person maybe could burn me or whatever, or be more guarded because all the betrayal that I've dealt with and whatever you call it. If I define every future decision in every relationship off of past, dude, I'll stay in a corner sucking my thumb the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But dude, if I willingly look at the upside of what am I going to gain and possibly get in collaboration by working with extraordinary people. Yeah. One of my mentors says it best. He goes, you don't become extraordinary by hanging around ordinary people.
Yeah. And
when you do collaborations with extraordinary individuals, will you get burned? You probably, you're going to get burned again. But not every single relationship engagement is going to be a situation where you're going to get burned. However, you're going to be wiser. You're going to have a better sense of discernment. You're going to learn parameters that are healthy, that you can say, hey, I love what you're doing. I love what you're all about. What would it look like and would you be comfortable with if we were to engage in this sort of arrangement and understanding moving forward? And man, we could really make something happen together. So I guess, how do I set up the guardrails and potential blind spots from happening and rogue waves in relationships? What I do is I get explicit because of my love for people. I get explicit in what that structure is. If I really do love you, I'll just say, hey, here's the potential blind spots. Here's what makes me uncomfortable. Here's what works for me. Here's what doesn't. Here's the rip cords. It's easy to get in bed with people. It's hard to get out.
Yeah.
What would it look like if we did this together? Would you be comfortable under this structure? And if they say, yeah, let's roll, let's lock arms. Yeah. But I would rather go to bed with a failure or a misstep than with regret and not stepping into that risk and that faith-filled life that God's inviting us into. Us bringing together, if I came in and said, no, dude, I'm only going to do this if he pays me the rate that I need, or if this is, or if this just falls under the normal parameters of my normal operating business. No, I'm putting limitations on this, and I'm setting it up for, what does God want to do with this? This is a supernatural project. What's it going to look like? How does it need to be? And so therefore, I want to remain in a position to be able to be moved around, but I also want to set up those parameters out of respect for my craft, your craft, the investment of this time of what we're doing together, that this isn't a waste. And so out of respect for the other person, be vulnerable, be explicit though, in what your needs are and what your hopes are.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that, part of what you're saying isn't that you just give yourself away to everyone, but you're listening to the internal gut place that says, where is the yes? And then what does that yes look like? How is that going to be expressed? And I love that you're going, no, we're all going to be burned. And I accept that, one of the things that I've accepted is that in every relationship, we're going to experience some form of betrayal. Now that betrayal doesn't have to be the intensity of they stole everything from me. It's like, they made a little bit of a mess, and I trusted them with something, and they kind of fudged up with it.
Totally.
And so whether it's big or small, depending on how you look at it, there's levels of betrayal, but when there's a commitment to the relationship, there's so much possibility that can happen. And those, and I don't know, betrayal is a strong word I'm using, but I'm saying there's just those messes that are going to happen. And, as they come up and we accept that they're part of the process, then we can actually begin to live fully alive inside of relationships, knowing that I have an ability to grieve. I have an ability to have conversations. I have an ability to challenge the person that I love. And we're going to grow from one another if we stay committed inside of this and we stay humble in our hearts and how we do it. Yep.
Yeah. You got to be very careful. If I was to look back, or if I was to, I would say this to everybody listening. I'd say the smartest thing that you could be investing is your self-awareness and emotional intelligence, because I've seen more folks over the last 5 years that mishandled a very manageable situation. And it wasn't what they said, it was how they said it. One of my other mentors says it best. He goes, most people lead negotiations with a hammer rather than a feather. And because they're operating from a wound, and because they're operating out of a massive festering splinter that's just been in their skin and their soul for years, they're infected and they don't even realize it. But it's like that person that just gets a flipping gun and goes out and starts blasting everywhere, not aiming at anything.
Yeah.
Well, folks, what I call is like people mismanage their dealings and don't know how to handle relationships to the point where they're literally what I call relational suicide. And it didn't even need to be that way. No. So when you talk about things going sideways or things getting a little bit messy, leadership is messy.
Yeah.
Stepping into the unknown and going big. Yeah, that can get a little bit messy, but how things are handled and how things are said says so much.
Yeah.
And so the art of being a, gentleman, meeting face to face over rather than a text or an email.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying, dude? It's like, you really want to step into some, and dude, this really goes layers deep as to when I see creatives and God bestowing assignments upon creatives that are influencing culture and influencing the world for the kingdom. There's a lot of folks that are asking for the weapon to be put in their hand, and they do not have the prerequisites of being pre-qualified to steward such a gift.
Yeah.
And they get butt hurt really easy.
Yeah.
They get offended. Dude, the biggest one is offended really easy.
Offense.
And then,
wow. Yeah.
And dude, offense, operating out of an offense of like the reason why I went into healing and did so much work for about a decade on myself was unraveling the fact that I was sitting in an office saying how much help I needed. And what they exposed to me was like, hey, the common denominator in all your problems and every person that you dealt with is you.
Yeah. Come on.
And so, dude, I had to look internally that my launching pad had some massive fractures in it.
Yeah.
And here I am saying, dude, Lord, I want you to drop off the space shuttle, give me a killer calling and launch an incredible initiatives. And he's like, dude, there's some work to be done here on the foundation of your launching pad, because an inch down here when you launch is miles off the target up there when you go big.
Come on.
So I just think that's things are going to go sideways, but if you keep seeing the same patterns revealing in your life in terms of, man, people just keep coming into my life and out of my life, into my life and out of my life, you might want to stop for a second, pump the brakes, do a 360 analysis, start taking some inventory on your self-awareness, your emotional intelligence, not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it and how you're conducting yourself. Because, dude, you're gonna start to get cynical, and when cynicism starts to fester, it gets really gnarly.
Yeah, I want to say two things. One is offense is the greatest limitation to advancement.
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Because when we get into an offended place, we cannot grow, not either from the person or the circumstances that happen, and it stops. It kills opportunities for relationship healing. It is such a detriment inside of our life, and we want to hide behind offense because offense is like this blockade that keeps us from having to face our fear.
Totally.
If I'm offended, I have justification for why I don't have to look inwardly at myself. And the truth is, at the core of all of us in humanity, when we're in relationship with self-judgment and shame, we will always be terrified to take an honest look inside of the mirror. And so fear is this thing, one of the greatest risks we'll ever have in our life, more than exposing ourselves to others, is exposing ourselves to ourselves. That means starting there, that initial step, and going, I am going to take an honest look at me. How am I doing life? Coming out from behind our offenses, coming out from behind our denial that we hide behind, and going, what is it that's happening? What is it in my history that's dictating my present? What is it that is controlling and destroying the relationships in front of me? And that's truly the place of true empowerment. Empowerment is not that I go and I make someone change and I use my voice to demand that they apologize or to demand that they be different, or to demand that they somehow see me. But true empowerment is to face fear head on within myself and ask myself, what is really going on there? And how do I own this? And how do I choose to heal from this?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I want to say, just kind of on that note, you wrote a book called Fear Hunters. And I want to talk about, I want you to kind of share your journey, just a little bit of that, of what that process entails. Because on the cover of this book is this little kid carrying a sword and a cape, right? Mm-hmm. And I want you to just share, like, what kind of happened there for you? What is that about?
Yeah, great. So there's three phases to Fear Hunters: overcoming fear and shame, so that you can truly step into the fullness of your calling and your true identity. And the three phases of that for me in the book, of what I went through, was, the first part was when I looked at myself and I looked at, man, I've got this incredible knot of fear and shame. And literally my life was the fuel. The fuel of my life was fear and shame. And that literally was the driving force behind it all. Even as a believer, like, I know it sounds crazy, but I first wanted to be able to diagnose it. Yeah. So the diagnostics of part one is all really helping people identify what fear is, what shame looks like, how the enemy uses that against us, how they manifest, what the symptoms look like. Because most of the time people are just putting Band-Aids on symptoms rather than dealing with the core issue. So I wanted to really get to the root of the problem. So the first section was about really diagnosing, well, dude, what am I dealing with here? Second part was, what does it look like to actually go into my worst nightmares, traumas, and wounds? And people are like, good grief, I don't want to do that. Why don't you stop pissing and moaning and just get out there and live life? You're right?
Totally.
We totally hear that. But an interesting thing struck when you look at Silver Linings Playbook, and Bradley Cooper, the character's in there, and he's in with a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist looks at him and goes, dude, if you don't have a strategy, you're dead.
Yeah.
And that had to be his go-to as to dismantling when a moment hits, or a trigger hits, or PTSD hits, or whatever hits. Mm-hmm. What's your strategy? And so for me, part two is really providing the structure and the strategy for not just one. Now you know how to diagnose it, see the telltale signs, see the symptoms, but when it triggers and when it happens, to be able to stop, press pause, and go, hold on a sec. I need to go get quiet for a minute. But I have the strategy to go back to the past, sit in that situation, and in that situation, understand and how to disarm the bomb that keeps giving me echoes and aftershocks. Literally, you're traveling in time. Yeah. You're going back to the past to disarm a bomb that has been giving you pings and aftershocks this whole time.
Yeah.
And you're diffusing it and disarming it. And that is only given for me, and everybody can speak differently. But for me personally, that book, the only way that I was able to do that, because if I could have got rid of my own fear and shame, I would have, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
But until I received the compassion from my Heavenly Father, until I actually received that and actually received love, probably for the first time in a lot of areas, I cannot give to the child within me until I've learned to receive it myself. And dude, I was crushed because when I looked at the compassion through his grace of something that it doesn't deserve, you know, and I'm not, this is far from a comparison, but might have been a little bit of the same feeling that you had with extravagant love or generosity from like getting the painting.
Right.
You're just like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't amount up. Like, I don't get it. What the heck? What's up? Something's going to happen. Like, too good to be true. Like, when extravagant love of my heavenly Father that he has for me because of his grace, and he's got that for all of us to receive. But I'm like, dude, if I don't freaking tap into this, I'm going to continue to try to do this out of self-will and selfish ambition. Yeah. And I'm freaking tired, dude. I'm exhausted. And I don't know why I'm so tired, but I know I'm tired. Yeah. And as soon as I started to go back and receive that compassion and love and bestow that upon the child within, all of a sudden, dude, the fog started lifting.
Yeah.
Clarity started coming.
Yeah.
Wholeness started coming. Operating out of confidence in who God's called me to be rather than in poser and cockiness. Do you realize how hard it is to keep up the poser? It's hard. And so what is part 3 about? Now that I've diagnosed it in part 1, finally know what I'm dealing with and the enemy and the target. You know, it's almost like Luke Skywalker with that helmet on and blindfold. He can't even see, but he's trying to learn how to lightsaber and hit that flying orb, right? That's how I felt.
Yeah.
But then once I had the strategy to disarm the bombs with my Heavenly Father, really authentically knowing how to go and have a strategy when an aftershock hits, now I'm freed up.
Yeah.
Well, great. Now that I'm free, what do I do with all this gained bandwidth? What do I do with, like, if I brought the thermometer down of intensity in my life?
Yes.
What do I do with all this capacity?
Yeah.
Well, all I wanted to do now was spend the rest of my life taking that hope, taking that good news of the gospel, the grace of what God's done for us. And I just wanted to use it as an act of worship back to him through what? My creativity, risk taking, collaborations, caring for AIDS orphans in South Africa, stepping into the wholeness and the fullness of what he called me to be. I could not do that if I'm looking over my shoulder the whole time going, yeah, but you were, and no, you can't be. And you know what? People already wrote books, and you know what? You can't do online courses, and you're not affiliated with the church. Nobody's going to listen to you. And you know, all these lies. I'm like, dude, screw you, screw you, screw you.
Come on.
I'm going where he's called me to be. Now, dude, you can't overcome and step into the fullness of who you are if you constantly got one foot in the past, staying attached to out of security.
Right.
Why? Because it's familiar.
Yeah.
I'm going to retreat to the familiar of being insecure on a hamster wheel of self-management, living the poser because it's familiar.
Yeah.
But you know what? The upside of getting all that crap, and literally it's like cleaning out the sewage and the drain pipe, dude, of being able to flow into the fullness and the wholeness of who God's called me to be and you to be. That's all I want to spend the rest of my life doing. So I'm like, you want to learn that strategy? You want to learn how to diagnose it? You want to learn how to step into your calling? Read the book. Like it's it's a strategy. And dude, I didn't wait for permission. Just like you with the book with Oki. It's like, I remember the day sitting there going, take everything that you've learned, the underbelly of your life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and take that story, wrap it around the strategy and the implementation of how people can use it in their lives and create that asset and take it to market. I'm like, who's going to read that? But you know what, dude? We got orders literally, we just got another order while we're having this call. Like, people keep buying this book and the other books that I've written, but I want to see people step into that freedom, and I want to see them just bear as much fruit in this lifetime and have a blast while doing it and not having to be so tied and operating out of a wound. So that's why I created it. That's
great. I love that. And something that I want to point out there is while you're dialoguing, you talked about exhaustion. Yeah. And so a lot of people, like, they're like, well, what's the benefit? What is the benefit of doing this? And, you know, a lot of people can be running on their hamster wheel and being seemingly very successful on their hamster wheel. They can be even having excellence happen or making a lot of money or the things that feel like make it all a win. But they're actually deep down inside paralyzed with fear, being driven by fear, being exhausted by fear. And what the quality of life is survival versus thriving. They're just surviving one more day, one more moment, and they're not actually alive to their friends. They're not alive to their children. They're not alive to their spouses. They're not alive to even the thing that they're doing. I've had so many entrepreneurs come into my world and they're like, I don't even know why in the hell I'm doing this. I hate it. I hate it. I just can't stop. Yep, I'm scared to stop. I'm scared of losing everything. I'm scared of everything falling apart. I just keep going, and we're living in our own enslavement inside of our minds and our hearts. And there's something about when we're willing to actually go visit those places, put things on pause. I went through a season where I call it where God pushed pause in order to teach me how to play.
Yep, that's right.
And something had to be paused inside of me and go, I'm going to get off the hamster wheel. I may lose everything. Everything might fall apart. I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going to begin to trust into the power of unconditional love. I'm going to begin to trust in grace, that there's going to be more than enough grace daily for me to actually dig in and find solutions, find answers, find healing, and that there's going to be enough grace for tomorrow when I get there, for when I have the needs, whether it's a need for finances or the need for opportunities or the need for relationships. Each day has its own provision of grace that it will provide to me as I step into those days.
That's right.
And so a lot of people out there, even in this season with all the craziness that's happening in the world, you're feeling such exhaustion. There is deep exhaustion you're feeling. And it's not just because the world is a dumpster fire at the moment. Because a lot of times we can look at it and go, oh, it's a dumpster fire and I'm exhausted by that. No, you're exhausted by what this is pushing on inside of you. You're exhausted because it's pushing on the fear you haven't dealt with. You're exhausted because it's pushing on the insecurity. The places where you feel already abandoned in life, it's just highlighting the abandonment that was always there, that's been there, that you haven't been willing to deal with and find out and get healing over, so that you could actually acknowledge, you know what, I'm not abandoned. There is a good dad that created me, and I am loved, I am chosen, and he is involved even in this moment when I lost my job, or I might lose my business or things like that. There's still a provider who wants to participate with me in a divine relationship, and he not only wants to take care of the provision right in front of me, the food on the table and the clothes on my back and the house hanging over my head, but he also wants to participate in the relationships that he divinely aligns in this season to equip us to live a vibrant, thriving life. And so there are some of you that the minute you decide to say yes to facing these fears, yes to digging into these places inside of your heart, that not only will the circumstances lend themselves to you, but the relationships will begin to lend themselves to you. They'll start to come into your life.
That's right. Yep.
I know that we don't have a whole lot more time left. We're kind of getting closer to the end. One of the things that I think is really beautiful is, again, part of my book is about restoring childlike wonder, facing the pain, looking at our greatest losses and facing the lies that consume us. When we begin to face those things, how the people in our lives come into our world to help actually bring truth and liberate us through our journey. One of the things that I'm so amazed at is your brand called The Kid in Me, because it is an invitation back to also as well childlike innocence and wonder, and viewing the world through the lens of a child in a pure way. And can you just tell us a little bit about The Kid in Me?
Yeah, thanks, man. The Kid in Me, for my entire career over the last 35 years, have had this just incredible journey of working with incredible brands. Whether it was Cars for the Fast and the Furious, MTV painting, the pool with Robin Big, having art in Costco, and doing work with Disney, all these amazing things and opportunities, and publishing online and selling art and touring the world selling art. But there was this thing in me that just said at one point, back after, I don't know, it was in 2010 to 2011, it was kind of getting to this point where, I've been doing it since I was 16. I wasn't burned out, but I was more like, $150 million in the bank. What would I do today? How do I want to spend this next year? And I remember, like, very blatantly, there was a conversation that the Lord and I had at the table, but one of the biggest things that was take away from that conversation was the kid in me. And that was the idea of taking that idea. At first, it was first born out of what did you want to be when you grow up? And so at first, and God usually deals with you in an assignment and in a process. Most people think it's going to be one big download and that's it. Like, there's your assignment. It's like, no, it goes little by little by what I believe trustworthiness and faithfulness, showing like, I look at my process with the Lord, and you could agree with this, or maybe even say, yeah, I've experienced that. But faith for me, being trustworthy and faithful and putting things into risk and danger, because life requires risk and danger. And in my creative journey over this career, it was very evident that God always would say, let me see how you do with this little Chinese to-go box. It was like that little white carton, and it was on my doorstep. Mm-hmm. The doorbell would ring. I'd open that. There it is. All right. And I would go put that into play. The next doorbell rings again. Dude. Then I went out there. I wonder how big the box is. It might be a smaller cardboard box. It could fit a few books, right?
Yeah.
And that doorbell kept on ringing every time I took an idea or a download and put it into play. So the kid in me was born. First version, that small box, was paint people's stories of what they wanted to be when they grow up.
Come on.
And just do it through your characters. It's this little Noah, this 10-year-old orphan. I knew it was this 10-year-old orphan that was on the autism spectrum. That was where it was born. But it evolved over time, over these years, into huge, massive shows, like crazy town shows, to then me creating these characters, little Noah, little Griff. And I was working on this big story arc in the background, but meanwhile, still using them in business and in the marketplace. So then Costco picked them up and started selling my Kid and Me products online. Wow. Then Disney said, hey, we want to take them and create figurines where the characters are riding our rides. And so now there's a whole Kid and Me line just with Disney, and you can get on shopdisney.com. But here's where it got bonkers, was when a large network approached me at an event and said, hey, so is that owned already? I go, no, I own it. It's my IP. I've been working on this for a few years. And they say, hey, let's have a meeting. Next thing I know, I've got big deals, papered contracts to make it into a feature film, episodic book series. And I'll leave it at that, because we're in it right now, in that development stage right now. And the book writing, the plot, it going to market, especially right now. And this is where it gets bonkers. In 2013, when it really hit the market to where it is now, God has brought it full, like in that process of the assignment, for such a time as now, in this pandemic, in a time when everybody needs content, in a time when everybody needs wholesome content and a message of hope, but something cool and edgy. Yeah. And people ask me, so what's the tone of it? Well, the Kid in Me is basically the tone of Harry Potter meets the Iron Giant meets Stranger Things.
Come on.
It's edgy, cool, fun, exhilarating, massive contrast between dark and light.
Yeah.
But a message of hope for families of all generations. And so this little 10-year-old orphan who's on the spectrum lives in this orphanage, is able to visit kids in their worst nightmares while they sleep, help rescue them into their true identity, and help them live in their calling in the real world and in the dream world as well. So I'll leave it as the top line, but it's one of the most awesome things. Like, that's what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, is just helping mentor, coach folks, use this Kid in Me project as a vehicle to be able to bring people to hope and build God's kingdom. And there's a bunch of other things we're doing too, but that is a really exciting initiative.
So here's what I want to say and extract out of that. What Noah talked about is there was these invitations for expanding capacity that kept showing up on his doorstep. Invitations to learn something about himself, to develop something inside of himself. Because as vision and as dreams grow, they come with a lot of weight, a lot of expectations, a lot of challenges. And so there are these little things. Like, get good with the little things, going, oh, I'm going to allow this to like percolate and develop inside of me. One of the things that we have inside of our culture is a microwavable culture, where we just want everything instantly, but we don't understand what comes with the thing on the other end. And we don't understand the devastation that would take place if it all came at once. And one of the beautiful things is around, you said 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, was when Kid and Me kind of dropped in your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like we're in 2020 going towards 2021, and it's over a decade of development and stuff happening. And there's these things percolating, and you don't have any anxiety about, well, is this going to be this or is it going to be made? And you're just like, the doorbell dings every day. I'm going out and I'm grabbing hold of what's on the front step. I'm taking care of that because it's developing something inside of me to actually carry the load for potentially an entire series or an entire movie or all these other things. There's relationships. You are at your age right now. I mean, you look young, but you're kind of getting to be an old guy there, Noah. And you've spent years developing relationships, years upon years of being faithful and developing, whether it's relationships with corporations or it's relationships with individuals. But the reason I'm pointing this out are some of you so easily get hopeless about the journey of your dreams but you're not willing to just go answer the door when the doorbell rings and be faithful what's sitting on the front door. So this is kind of the call to action that I'm giving you guys. Like, what is it in your life that's been showing up on your doorstep for you to be faithful to, and you haven't been being faithful to, or you've been becoming hopeless over being faithful to that little thing on the doorstep, and you need to actually realign yourself with the reality of like, no, all I need to do is utilize the grace that's here for me today and be faithful to this one thing and grow all I can grow with what's right in front of me. And the only way that we can really do that is when we begin to go, I'm taking the expectations off what it has to look like, how it has to happen, whatever those dreams, desires, whatever it is. And you just go, I'm going to choose to risk and be brave and allow myself to be present with what's right here instead of living in a future that hasn't like even come yet and worrying about that outcome and just going, it's more risky to just be present instead of getting lost in the future in our head and just going, I'm going to do this right here.
Dude, trust me, if I manipulated, kicked and screamed about this all happening according to the way that I wanted it.
Yeah.
I've seen what happens when that happens. But the more we stay available to be crafted and molded into what God wants, meaning what he knows that we need versus what we want, is so supernaturally unbelievable, far beyond anything we could comprehend or imagine, if we just allow him to do it. And when it shows up on our doorstep and doesn't make sense, don't ask questions, just obey and do. Yeah. And there is a freedom on the other side of that where you just go, holy mackerel, dude. I'm so glad I kept my mouth shut and just followed his lead, because leading into that unknown is the life of faith. Can you imagine being Noah building the ark for 150 years and like year 78, guys are rolling by going, dude, it still hasn't rained. How long are you going to do this? And you think Noah might be sitting there going, they're kind of right. Nothing has shown up. It's like year 78, right? But you know what? He remained faithful, knowing that his payoff and his upside was down the line. But here's what to your point, dude, remember it's about people. People are the purpose, right? The process itself. It's really what God wanted to teach Noah during the building, not the payoff of it going at the end. And so I'm more like, what is he downloading and teaching me the beauty and the layers of his glory and love and just what he wants to show in me as a creative through the process? Yeah. Or am I just wanting to leapfrog that and go straight for the payoff?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. The one other thing I'll say in this is that you can't have adventure without risk and danger. And part of our dreams are these adventures that we want to live and cause us to thrive. But you have to be willing to take the risk and face the danger that's inside of all these things, because you made point of that. And I'm like, part of this whole life, a key component in this whole life, and it's a key part of my book too, is the idea of adventure. There's this component of this little boy, Joshua, who's also interacting with Oki, and there's this whole world of adventure that's taking place, but it comes at a cost, a price. It comes at facing fears. It comes at, and without the danger, without the risk, it would just be another boring story. I'm not just talking about my book. I'm talking about life. Our lives are just another boring story. We were here and we were gone, and there was no point to it if we don't engage adventure and the danger and the risk that's involved inside of it. And so I kind of leave you with that, and also with this. As we're wrapping up two things, I'm gonna leave you guys with a 2 to 3 minute excerpt from my audiobook, The Tree of Life, which, as I said early on in the beginning, all the details of how you guys can go and support this dream of seeing it become a reality, of people actually being able to get their hands on it and be impacted by the message of it. But one of the people that, or part of the reason I chose this excerpt is Otis, the wild-eyed squirrel. He was one of my favorite characters that you drew. You brought him to life in such an incredible way, and he has such a vibrant, wild, adventurous attitude about everything. He's a risk taker. He faces danger head on, and he doesn't act as though he doesn't have fear. He acknowledges his fear, but he's willing to face his fear no matter what it costs him. And that's part of fully coming alive as human beings, is we have to be willing to face our fear no matter what it costs us if we truly want to live. And so as we jump into that, I'm going to cue that up, and then I'm going to have you share how we can find you. But to cue that up really quick, what you guys are about to get into, it's a moment between Otis and Oki, as Oki is a sapling and Otis has dug him up out of the ground, and he has taken him on an adventure to the Valley of Eagles. And there's a discrepancy. There's an explosion that happens between the two of them. And it highlights the relational experience that we all have, where there is messes and there is confrontations we have to have. And there is, in overcoming those things, we get to the other side of deeper depth of life and deeper quality and connection with one another. So that's what you're about to hear as we jump into this. And stay tuned to hear how you can connect with Noah afterwards. And without further ado, here we go. Oki's excitement began to dissipate as Otis barreled through the maze of foliage that endangered his future. "Hey, I'm still strapped to your back. Be careful. Woohoo! Yeah, baby!" Oki's plea went unnoticed as Otis got lost in the excitement of his favorite part of every descent, the landing. "Prepare for landing!" Oki had little control over preparation, so rather than worry about the landing, he simply braced for it. In a very fashionable manner, Otis performed a beautiful barrel roll any gymnast would be proud of. Unfortunately for Oki, Otis didn't take into account that there was still a sapling strapped to his back. "Now that is first-class travel, my friend," Otis declared while brushing himself off. Oki coughed up a mist of dirt from his lungs and did his best to shake the sediment from his face. Without pause, Otis took off sprinting, leaping over rocks, dodging trees, and diving under logs. "Otis! Stop! 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 Otis!" Breaking on a dime, Otis came to a halt. "What is wrong with you?" Oki shook his head in frustration. Otis, forgetting that Oki was strapped to his back, spun around to face his accuser. "What do you mean, what is wrong with me?" "You're crazy! You're crazy and you're gonna kill me!" Otis spun around again. "No, I'm not. Quit being a baby. You're alive, aren't you?" "Yeah, but I'm not sure for how long." Otis spun yet again, pointing his finger in the air like an all-knowing guru. "No one is sure for how long. That's the surprising mystery of life." "Well, I don't need you ending my life before the surprising mystery takes its natural course." Again, Otis spun. "Quit nagging and being a whiner. Learn to embrace fun." "I am embracing fun, just not death." And again, Otis spun around and retorted. "No, you're scared and worried, and you're being a real drain on things. If you die, at least you die doing something no other plant in this forest has ever done or will ever do. Why don't you just learn to be thankful? No more complaining the rest of the trip, or I'll bury you smack dab in the middle of a briar patch." Oki's temper subsided as he began to feel the reality of what Otis had just said. "Fine." Spinning again, Otis demanded an answer. "Do you mean it? Are you fine, or are we gonna be burying you 5 minutes from now?" "I said it and I mean it. Fine." Oki crossed his leaves as Otis spun again. Before speaking, Otis took a brief pause to gather his thoughts and feelings. "I'm sorry for not being more careful. I'm just really excited for you to see this." "I'm not a drain," Oki said sadly. Otis turned again, this time with sympathy and a genuine apology in his heart. No, you're not. I didn't mean that. I was just angry. I'm really sorry for saying that and getting mad at you. I'd never bury you in a briar patch. Oki took a moment to gather his thoughts and feelings as well. I'm sorry for nagging you and worrying about everything. Honestly, I kind of wish I was more like you. Slowly turning with a bit of embarrassment, Otis responded, How so? Oki had moved Otis' heart. Well, you're adventurous and fun and you don't care what anybody says about you. Otis' eyebrow perked up. He whipped around again. I'm being talked about? I don't think you're crazy at all. A little offended, Otis spun again. Who says I'm crazy? And I love your playfulness, and I'm so thankful that you took me on this journey. I'm thankful you wouldn't let me say no. I'm thankful that you did everything you could to bring me along. Otis began to tear up. You're brave and strong and smart. A tear made its way to Otis' chin. You are and you do what others only dream of. In a way, you're kind of my hero. Clenching his quivering bottom lip with his teeth, trying his best not to break down crying, Otis turned once again. Quickly and quietly, he choked out, Thank you. I seriously love Otis so much.
Dude,
anyways,
totally. He
was one of my favorite voices to do. So, Noah, tell us, how can we find you? Tell us where we can go.
Well, thanks. My main site's noahelias.net. My art site is noahfineart.com. I'm on Instagram at noah.j.elias. But yeah, pretty much find everything there, and Facebook, Noah Fine Art.
That's awesome. Dude, I love you, and I'm so thankful for you being on here today.
You too, buddy. This has been a pleasure.
All right, everybody. If you got anything out of this episode, remember to like, subscribe, share, rate, review, all that good stuff. Get it out there. Share it on social media. And thanks for joining us. Bye now.